So check out what just came in the mail. This is the all-new electric e-bike, but this is different from the other electric e-bikes you've probably seen. This specific one is the electric ebike Lite series. So there's some really interesting characteristics about this. I think you may like it, especially if you're looking for somebody who wants something a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. Hang tight, I'll be right back. All right, so we have this that we just pulled out of there, and it's laying up here. It's all bundled up, protected with foam, paper, zip ties, and everything else you expect to get a folding e-bike protected with. Let's go ahead and get everything pulled off of it. Let's get it unfolded, set on the ground, and see what it looks like in its fully configured position. So here it is. This is really cool. This is the XP Lite. Weighs significantly less than their other electric bikes. But before we kick this video off, let's get the elephant in the room out there and exposed. So I know that Lectric sends their e-bikes out to a lot of YouTube reviewers, lots of them, a lot of RV channels, a lot of e-bike channels, and they really do a good job marketing their bikes to folks who watch YouTube. You know, on the other hand, they could spend a lot of that money on traditional advertising, which, you know, if they've found that this is a better value for them, then, you know, kudos to that. That's just good marketing. It's good strategy. But all that being said, you know, I think it's important to note that Lectric is not the only e-bike manufacturer out there. There are hundreds of them. And Lectric has chosen to work with certain YouTubers because, you know, we do a good job reviewing products for the most part. I believe that what most viewers of my channel and other channels probably don't know is that we get offered, I'm probably going to say at least 10 to 15 e-bikes from various manufacturers each month. Not even kidding you. And Lectric is by far not the most expensive or even near the top of that list. Many of them are $3,000, $3,500. A lot of expensive e-bikes out there and a lot of budget e-bikes out there. Most of them tend to be in that sweet, you know, $1,500 to $2,000 mark. Lectric, of course, falls well below that, and that's one of the reasons why I keep featuring electric e-bikes on my channel. If I just wanted a free e-bike, I could just, you know, accept all the e-bikes that are constantly offered to me. And again, I would have a garage with probably 25 e-bikes in it if that were the case. Some of them being pretty impressive in terms of overall spec, technology, and capabilities. One of the reasons why I keep accepting e-bikes whenever they, you know, want me to review one is the fact that I believe from a value perspective, they're some of the hardest e-bikes to beat. Now, why is that? Well, you know, a lot of e-bikes are very similar in terms of overall construction. A lot of e-bikes are very similar in terms of component usage. But where Lectric, I believe, thrives is their ability to mix quality components where they need them, and then at the same time provide more budget components where it makes sense, while at the same time also refining their product and constantly making it better and listening to what viewers want. A lot of the e-bikes that are offered to YouTube channels are this generic bike that really don't have any real advantages over anything else, and they ask a pretty hefty price for them. With Lectric, they're constantly evolving their product and including things that people are asking for, such as a lighter version of their e-bike, more colors. This is their champagne color. This one specifically is going to be for my wife to use because, you know, she's a smaller, shorter person and she prefers something that she can fit on a little bit easier. All right, so as we delve into this a little bit deeper, you can see that it has a smaller tire, right? This is a 20-inch diameter tire with a 2.4-inch width. You know, it's along the lines of what you might see on more aggressive mountain bikes, but it's not necessarily what I would consider to be a fat tire bike anymore. But, you know, it's not really needed to be a fat tire bike. I'm sure it's going to provide a little bit less suspension in terms of the overall rubber flexing versus a fat tire bike, and there is no front suspension fork on this like you've seen on the newer electric e-bikes. However, you know, it's a smaller frame bike, and it weighs significantly less, and it's still a folding bike. You know, everything on this bike is still very similar to what you might expect it to be on some of the others. Now, the only big difference I see in terms of mechanics is the fact that this does not have a shifter. So this is a single speed bike. That's going to be a factor for some folks, right? If you prefer to pedal your bike a little bit more, or if you prefer to be in a higher or a lower range gear when you get going or going up something, you're not going to have the option to shift this bike. So again, this is a single speed bike, not unlike some of the other, smaller folding bikes that are out there. Now, the biggest news about this bike is that it only weighs in at about 45 pounds, which is about 20 pounds lighter than the standard electric. It's going to come in 4 colors: black, white, tan, and blue. This is that tan or champagne color. But this is a really cool setup. And the reason why is because if you're not as tall in height, you'll be able to fit on it a little better. Now, one of the critiques that I have is I believe the seat post tube right here is way too long. It's pretty much the entire length of your tube right here. I don't think it needs to be that long. One of the challenges you run into when you do this is the fact that it sticks out the bottom. And if you have anything low to the ground, it can hit it. So if you have somebody who's relatively short that needs to ride this, that could be an issue. I can always cut off part of that tube, which I've done with other electric bikes, but it would just be nice if it was maybe about 4 inches shorter, because it certainly doesn't need to be, high enough to the point to where it's, this high. I don't think anybody would fit on this bike if the tube was up that high. I could be wrong though. Secondly, it would be nice if they had a suspension fork up front. The challenge with putting a suspension fork on a bike like this, though, is that it adds significant amount of weight, unless you go with a really high-end fork. But they really don't make higher-end forks that are made out of aluminum or magnesium or any of those for 20-inch wheels, and that's where you'd run into a problem. So you kind of have to deal with what's available on the market. The only other critique I have is this front. I don't really know what you would call it. It's kind of a stem, but this area, you can see how it kind of goes straight up. So instead of coming back like you might see on a traditional bike, it comes up through here and then it goes straight up right here. The only thing I don't like about that is for shorter individuals, it's going to increase their reach. On the electric bikes that we have, the XP2s, we actually converted this by flipping it around, and you can do that. It's not very difficult to do that, but it might be something I do for my wife simply because she might not be able to reach out as far as that might require. Again, this is kind of focused more for folks who are looking for a lighter bike, not necessarily a smaller bike, but it is smaller. It's more compact. It's going to be easier to fold and to carry in your vehicle, and it's going to give you a little bit more flexibility in terms of where you can use this, how you can use this. Maybe even if you can load this on a luggage rack without overloading your luggage rack a little bit more conveniently. In terms of pretty much all the other features, they're very similar to electric. The overall look is very similar to your standard electric bike. You still have your handle right here. To be honest with you, it's very similar in looks to a lot of electric bikes that are on the market. But what I like about electric, again, is the fact that they innovate and they do things a little bit differently. They created a lighter version. They still give you your mechanical disc brakes on it. It's got a rear mounted hub motor on it. The challenge with this one, again, is it's not going to be multi-speed. So, if you are looking for a bike with a shifter, this one's not going to be the one for you. Okay, so let's power this on. You got your key, and you should have a key slot right under here if it's the same as other bikes. And you got to put your key in. It's almost like an ignition, like that. This cord right here kind of rubs the path where that key is, but once you turn it on, you should be able to come up here, hold the power button down, and now the bike's ready to go. So you do have to have the key in the ignition underneath there. So I'll probably take that key off so I don't have a spare key just hanging there. And then you're ready to go. So getting on this bike, you're gonna have your standard throttle right here. It's already in power assist mode 1. And you can see the bike wants to go already. You can go through your various power levels right here, and this is simply gauging how much effort you want to have to pedal for the motor to kick in at what energy level. You have your odometer right here. It probably goes up to 21 miles an hour is what I suspect, but we'll definitely check that out when we do the road test on it. Has your standard electric handlebars. Nothing really seems too different here other than the fact that it's missing a shifter. Again, mechanical brakes. These brakes appear to be dialed in a little bit better than some of the other bikes I've received, but no, everything's really nice. And then you can adjust your handlebar height right here, and you have a nice little scale so you can make those adjustments very easily. You have your headlight on the front as well. The way you turn your headlight on is you hold down the plus button right here, and the headlight may have come on. It is on. Hold it down again, and it turns off. Very cool. Anyways, let's hop on it, take it for a ride, and see how it feels over this really bumpy yard we have out here. Okay, so we have our pedals folded out. We are ready to go. Pardon the wind noise if you pick up any. Problem with chest mounting a camera is that you sometimes get some wind noise, but let's see how this thing goes. Pedal assist 1 right now. And hit that throttle. Looks like the battery's full, thankfully. Let's take this up to its top speed. Definitely have to bed the brakes in. Bedding the brakes means hitting them hard a couple times. Going over really bumpy terrain here. Certainly not the smoothest ride with no suspension, but it's not really worse than any other bike of its type. Okay. Yeah, I got to get those brakes set in a little bit more. All right, I adjusted the camera up a little bit. You know, one of the challenges you have with a bike like this is, depending on your terrain and your weight, the top speed may be a little limited. Getting up to about 16 miles an hour on this rough terrain. Going up the hill. Yeah, struggles a little bit doing that, but not surprised. Whew, yeah, some of these bumps will get to you. If you're standing up a little bit, it's not as bad, of course. Use your legs as kind of your suspension. But when it's smooth, it feels great. Yeah, the wind's hitting me kind of hard right now, so it's only going to take me probably up to about 17 miles an hour with this kind of wind. One thing I got to admit is it's very quiet. I'm not hearing any rattling. I'm not hearing anything bouncing around or jostling. Feels very solid. On the street, it feels good. Now, in pedal assist 4, picks up speed pretty quick. Okay, so to kind of sum this bike up, I don't know the price on it yet. The price hasn't been released, but I will put a link in the description of the video so you can see this bike on their website and get an idea of how much it costs. You know, Lectric, again, has always been kind of a value leader in their segment, so I'm imagining it's not going to be too expensive and it's going to be easy to get into for a lot of folks. I love the fact that it weighs 20 pounds less than a standard electric bike. That's awesome. Part of it is mobility, right? If you have the ability to carry this where you want to use it, you're going to use it more. And that's with a lot of stuff. So it's going to be really interesting to see how people view this in terms of, you know, their own personal use, given the fact that you can load it up, carry it with you easier, and probably carry even more of these than you might normally. Because think about it this way. If you have 2 standard electric bikes, it's the equivalent of 3 of these in terms of weight. So very, very cool bike though. I like it. It's cool. I think my wife's going to dig it. Seat post, you know, I commented on how long the post is. You know, I might take that back because where it's at right now seemed like it might be kind of a standard seating height. I know it looks short right now, but I definitely need to raise it up probably another 4 or 5 inches for me personally. But overall, very, very cool bike. I want to give a big shout out to the folks over at Lectric for providing this on my channel for review and evaluation. You know, if there's other types of bikes, other types of e-bikes that you guys are interested in, let me know. You guys probably know that I have a $12,000 e-bike and or e-mountain bike, and you know, it's hard to compare something like this to something like that, but these are always super fun to ride around on, especially if you have family or friends over, you're RVing, you're taking it with you on a trip, and you want to get around an RV park really easily. These can come in really, really handy. Guys, I apologize for the wind noise. It is another very windy day out here. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.